Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's really great to see you. I hope I find you well. And today we're going to be having a chat with Fran Burke from Accurascale, and I'm really interested to hear some more about the all-new Manor class that has been announced, but also as well, I'm going to be having a little chat with him about some of the other models that have been coming through, including that absolutely fabulous Class 55 that we've been seeing some of the livery samples from. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. So, Fran, welcome along to the show. It's great to see you. I hope you're well there. And how are you weathering the not just COVID, but the winter weather? Have you had it quite cold down there?
Hi Jenny. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's been COVID has been interesting. We're obviously coming up on 12 months since lockdown kicked in. Obviously, just under a month ago. But we're keeping busy and we've been able to work flat out here. As for the weather, we were promised snow yesterday, but there's not. The sun is actually out today, which is very unusual for Ireland this time of year, as you can imagine. So it is quite cold, but I think we've escaped the snow in this part of the world. So. We're quite happy about that.
Oh, that's great. No worries. But what I really wanted to talk to you about is that you announced back on the 1st of February the all-new Manor. Now, this is the first steam outline model that you've announced. You've already got behind you the Class 55, the Class 37, the Class 92 announcements, and they're actually getting on quite well. But the Manor kind of blindsided the whole model world because it turned up with the working EPs. So it's not simply a case of saying, here's a photograph of the real thing, we'll do it over the next few years. You've actually put a lot of work into this. So how long have you actually been working on this project?
We started research in early 2019. So, in the gestation period, we're coming up on about 2 years worth of work so far. And we've made a conscious decision around locomotives. And all our models now, as you'll see, any wagons that we announce with a sample in hand. And this is to cut down on waiting time for people between, it announces something at initial development and then you don't see anything from it. You don't get the final model for about 2.5 years. Whereas this, we wanted to bring down the waiting time within 12 months on everything we do, COVID permitting, obviously. So the Manor started, we decided on it because it seemed a big gap in the market for top of the line double gauge Manor. So it seemed like the perfect one for us to do. I think, in previous chats with yourself, we teased that we were doing a steam locomotive, but obviously we didn't want to give too much away. So we put in a lot of initial research. We worked with the Great Western Society, Deltic, Earlstock Manor Fund, lots of GWR experts like Mike Romans and people like that who really know their stuff. About GWR steam especially, and we wanted to build up a good basis of research. And then around Warley in 2019, because we were staying in the Birmingham area, Tysley was just down the road, we started to do our initial surveys there. And we, especially around the tenders, because all the variation in Manor seems to be around the tenders. And that's something that we want to bring into it as well. Like we do, like with, you see something like the Deltic and Class 37, there's lots of different variations within the one model that, a lot of manufacturers did some before, but never to the extreme that we want to do it. And we want to bring that to the steam locomotives as well. So the Manor, we saw lots of variation in the tender, we want to cater for that. So we surveyed around Tysley just before Warley. And I think on the Monday afterwards, when we were still quite blind after a very busy weekend. And then after that, we travelled down to Didcot to survey Cookham Manor. And then that was 3D scanned as well. So a lot of work had gone into it. And because we do our own CAD in-house and we had all the research and design and then the scan done, CAD itself, 3D CAD was built quite quickly. And we had sent off for initial tuning and stuff like that by early last year. And the other thing we want to do as well, people were kind of blindsided, it's a locomotive announcement out of the blue. But if you look back on 2020, we actually didn't announce very much. We announced the variation of the Class 37, the 37-4s, and a couple of wagons, but we wanted to catch up with ourselves a bit first. And in the background, the Manor was progressing quite nicely, so that's why we were able to have a sample ready to go, and people could see that here it is in the flesh. So it's kind of we're kind of catching up on our initial release locomotives as well. And the Manor has progressed really well. It's, we were very thorough in our research and in our surveys and stuff like that. So we had such a kind of clean process between initial research, design, and then into tooling that it did actually progress quite quickly for us, which was great. It was just in time then. 1st of February was our third birthday in the British market for Accurascale, and it was a great way to celebrate it then, to announce our first steam locomotive.
So when you talk about the variations, particularly with the tender, is this something that you're going to be looking to do to effectively be able to recreate accurately every member of class? Or how are you looking at doing the different variations within the tooling? Is there going to be a lot of variation?
We looked at the Manor, and if you look at the 10 locomotives we've announced in our initial release, obviously we're covering livery variations, which, is very important to give people a choice. But if you look within those 10 variations, pretty much each one has a unique set of details in it. So there are almost 10 unique different locomotives within that first launch. So there's stuff of where the washout plugs are based in the boiler. There's 2 different, spaces or placements for that. We're covering that. We are looking at flush-sided and rivet-sided 3,500 gallon tenders. We have options around chimney, smoke box door handles, the buffers, different tender frames, spring hangers, buffers there as well. And then even in later years when they had the frame installed on the tender to stop people, obviously prevent people from getting hit by overhead wires, or to remind them for that. So it's kind of throughout their careers around the redrafting and stuff like that carried out with BR. So, you can't cover every single tiny different detail, but we try to cover a broad range of details to accurately portray them throughout their careers on the GWR, and then obviously on BR as well. And then even into preservation too, which is good.
Brilliant. So you've shown the EP. Has that got a really good response from enthusiasts? And has there been anything that you've identified off the back of that you're going to go back and change in the model, or has it been perfectly received?
There's always really good constructive feedback that you get back from enthusiasts, and there might be something you missed or something that you can look at again if you weren't sure around a compromise or something like that as well. Overall, the Manor has been really well received and been very complimentary. One area that was identified and we got on feedback is our slide bar is a bit thin, so we're going to look to increase the depth on that and work with the factory on that. They were a bit reluctant to previously, but we've kind of worked out a way that we can increase it. Some of the rivet detail is going to be improved. We're literally down to counting, identifying rivets at this stage. And I think when we look at those small, minute details, that shows that the overall package of the locomotive is quite good. Another area that we're looking at as well is that there's just kind of little bits of finesse and, just kind of final finish. But it's hard to tell at this stage because it's a first casting, tooling still needs to be polished and stuff like that. And on the EP, it's still missing the etched and turned metal details. So we still have to get them. We won't get them until just after Chinese New Year now. And then we'll be able to make a full assessment on the full locomotive. But overall, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. And as I said, people are looking at very, very small parts of detail where we can improve and suggest we can improve. And that's what we're going to work on. But it does suggest that the overall package is quite attractive. And we've definitely captured the nature of the Manor and the beauty of its lights and stuff like that as well. So we're really happy about that.
And one of the things that, with the announcement of things like the Class 92, the Class 55 and the Class 37, is some of the more technical things that have gone inside it. Things like coming factory fitted with stay alives. Are we going to be seeing, and not just those features, but are there any new features in the Manor that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, with the Manor, we wanted to, again, we looked at the whole kind of steam locomotive market, and we want to see, well, how can we improve it, or how can we bring our own stamp to it, I suppose would be a better way to put it. Because there's some really fabulous models out there. We feel something with steam is haulage and capacity is something that we really want to improve. So it's a huge amount of die cast is used, and it's die cast running plate, die cast boiler, die cast chassis. And we really kind of want to build that into it. Around kind of, again, detail variations is something we're building into it, which again, as I said, we've done on our diesels. We want to bring that to steam locomotives because a lot of them have been, kind of not generic, but, there's been less detail variations in steam locomotives before. Our stay alive capacitors and stuff will be in this locomotive as well. All will pick up, obviously, but a lot of companies do that. And then we have 3 different speakers in the sound fitted locomotives. There will be 2 in the tender and 1 in the boiler. So we really want to push, obviously it's something we've seen with the Deltic and we will see with the Class 37 as well, and the 92 we've done that as well, where we put a lot of thought into sound fitted models, because digital is just getting much bigger and bigger as we go along. So that's another area where we want to really kind of push the envelope for steam locomotives and bring a next generation of sound fitted models as well. And obviously all 10 locomotives that we're doing in our range will be available DC, DCC and DCC ready, or with the full sound package fitted too. So there's these different elements that we're bringing into it, that we hope will set it apart, and give it a stamp of Accurascale steam locomotives. And, should these be successful, we will continue to build them into our next steam locomotives going forward too.
So what kind of, what date are we looking at? When can we expect to see these come to the market and be able to be bought? Do you have a date yet?
We work in quarters for the year. So obviously the tooling is done. So a lot of the work has been done by announcing it on the 1st of February. We've cut out 18 months away from initial project start until now. So the EP will be assessed in the coming weeks, and then we expect delivery samples not too far afterwards, because we don't think there's a huge amount to be done on it. The slide bars and stuff like that is a fairly easy thing to do. It's not tooling where you fix, it's more of a metal part. Then with the same goes for the rivets actually. Then we're looking at a full release in Q4 this year. So you're talking between October, November, December of this year.
And one of the other things I just want to talk to you a little bit about is that the price that you've announced it at is a very, very competitive price compared with what we're seeing from a variety of other manufacturers for other steam outline locomotives. Has it been difficult to get that price to a very competitive point, or is this an area that's very important to keep it within a certain price bracket?
I think it's very important to, the way we approach it is, obviously we're big on detail and we like a lot of extra parts and stuff like that, but we don't want that to be inaccessible for most people. For most modelers, we want to really make that as competitive as possible. And if we can make that price as competitive for such a top of the line locomotive, whether it's our Deltic or 92 or Manor or Class 37 or any of our wagons, we feel then that's the best value for money. You're getting a top of the line product for a reasonable price, so it's best bang for buck. We have to do a lot of negotiation with factories and stuff like that, and we do beat them down on price. And especially when we're doing something with the Manor, there's so much die casting into it. Die casting is a lot more expensive, as you can see with fully die cast locomotives on the market before in steam. They tend to have a higher price point, but we're trying to bring that down into a sub £200 price point. We managed to do that with the Manor quite successfully, for a reasonably sized locomotive. So there is a lot of toing and froing with the factory, negotiating this and the other, but it's very important for us that we don't price it out of the pockets of all modelers. We do our best to cater for everybody, and we even do stuff if you order direct from us, you can pay in installments, and that kind of softens the burden between now and delivery, that it's not going to be £170 or £260 for a sound fitted model straight out of my pocket right now. I can pay £50 a month or £20 a week or whatever way. We're very flexible on the terms, and it's at no additional interest. We don't charge handling fees, anything like that as well. If you want to pay for it in a series of payments, it's still £169.99 or £259.99. So we do try our best to keep the prices reasonable and make it as easy as possible to obtain them. And we just want to bring the best value for money, and we see that by offering the best detail for the most reasonable price we can. So yeah, it's very important to us to do that.
Well, thank you very much for talking about the Manor project. I'm really looking forward. It's obviously the first steam locomotive from Accurascale. And obviously, so far I've seen pretty much all of the different wagons that you brought out, and they are absolutely amazing. So I am so looking forward to seeing the completed Manor, and hopefully we'll be getting one to run around on Weir Yard. Well, what I want to turn to now is we've just recently seen as well the livery samples of the Class 55, and it does seem that there's so much great stuff coming out. We're very much spoilt for choice. But the Class 55 livery samples have gone down so well. I've seen so many people sharing the posts and talking about them really quite favourably. Have you had a good feedback on those samples?
Yeah, we've had amazing feedback. The Deltic has been a huge learning curve for us. It's our first, obviously, British outline locomotive. It's not our first locomotive. Our Irish Metrovic was just before it, and they're in production at the moment. But we learned between the two products running in tandem, we learned so much about producing a locomotive and how it's not the easiest job in the world to do. Obviously, we had a great track record in wagons, and they've gone down very well. But when you come to a power model, it's just a totally different kettle of fish. But we were very public in the issues we had with the Deltic, and we, around getting the shape as good as we wanted and getting it bang on to match up with everything. And I think we've really captured the character and the shape of the locomotive extremely well. And everyone has been very complimentary about that. And then just to see those painted samples has been a fantastic reward, just to all the hard work, and everyone is so eager to see the Deltic, and they've been so excited about it since we announced it. And it's just, this goes back to what I was talking previously about the Manor, about not announcing it until much later into the project. We shouldn't have announced the Deltic for another, 8 to 12 months than what we did. But we live and learn, and that's what we've learned from. But now this way is coming to an end with the Deltic, and people can see the quality that's in it, the different amount of parts, the etch detail. I mean, if you look at the fans just blew me away, and the fact that we're doing different grill covers and all that kind of stuff. Just stuff around the windscreen wipers. It's all the small details on such a large locomotive that just pop. And we're really well, the other thing we've got good compliments on is actually the colours we've used. The BR blue and BR green, especially around the lime green, has just really worked very well. And lime green on the green variants is a hard colour to capture in model form. But I think we've pretty much nailed it. The purple on the big purple monster is just this shade wrong, and people were actually surprised that we said that, but it's just a little bit tad wrong. But we're going to change that for production models. And then it's just the odd kind of printed mistake here and there, but we've sent a document back to China already just for correction documents on all our livery changes. We've also seen, and that they should go live in the next few days, is the special editions for the Delta Preservation Society locomotion models and Rosa Sheffield, and they look pretty epic as well. I know the guys will be showing them off, I think, in the coming days. So they look really, really good as well. So I think people are going to enjoy another FOT fest around them as well. But yeah, overall, we're absolutely delighted with them so far. They're not perfect in the sense of some of the paint tolerances and stuff like that, but that will be fixed on the production models as well. So they're going to just get even better again.
Excellent. And how long are we likely to be before we see those starting to appear in the shops?
At the moment, so the paint changes are obviously quite minor and very easy to correct. When it comes to actual fit and finish parts, we're all happy with that. So these will go into production just after Chinese New Year. Well, the basic production has already started, and molding and stuff like that. So that has already happened. There's a couple of little fit and finish areas that we weren't happy with, but that's down to assembly more so than tooling itself, so there's no corrections really needed there. So we're looking at a delivery date of late Q2, so we're looking at the summer around kind of June time. It might spill into Q3, kind of the whole customs and logistics fun that we're having at the moment, but that's when we're looking at anyway, so it should be this summer.
Excellent. And I also wanted to talk to you a little bit as well about the wagons. The wagons really is where I think most people are very familiar with the Accurascale, because those reach the market and they very much, I've found them to be masterpieces in miniature. I've really loved to handle them, to look at them. For me, I really struggle to find any bit of detail in the wrong place. And when you turn them over, the thing that really strikes me is stuff like things that you wouldn't necessarily see when they're running on the track. The detail is there. And how important has that been to make a model, almost the definitive model, so nobody would ever consider perhaps redoing that model in the future? How important is it to get it a perfect miniature of the full-size prototype?
I think it's just that's where our own enthusiasm into modern railways and real railways come into it. That we see it as we're making a scale model of a particular subject. So if it's a wagon, if it's a coach, if it's a locomotive, they all deserve a true representation of them. Now, obviously, they run on double low gauge track, and I won't get into a whole fine scale debate there, but that's the only compromise we like to make. Obviously, sometimes we have to deal with radius 2 curves, and there can be some kind of drawbacks, just some space constraints for people that we have to do as well. But when it comes to actual detail, we feel we can build them in from the outset, especially with as you've seen in our wagons, as you've said. Underneath the HUO has the hopper detail, the stem flow, and the PCAs has all the discharge detail, pipe detail. PFA, has it underneath as well, and then all the different containers on it, and then obviously our tipper wagons that has all the pipe and brake detail as well. And I know a lot of people will say, well, we don't need that because we don't see underneath the wagon. But like if you run something, and something I like to do is get down eye level to a train running by, and you can see it underneath there. Or if your track is as bad as mine, you get a lot of derailments, then you're going to see it too when they flip over. But it's just, we just feel that's a scale model and it needs to be representation of the real thing. And again, it's just about giving you most bang for your buck. So we keep them as reasonably priced as we can, but we give you everything we can in detail into them. And we've taken that into the locomotives as well. So we learned a lot on doing wagons, both Irish and UK outline. And we kind of took that ethos from day one that we want to make the very best model we can on any subject we do. And you look at something like a Deltic, we've put a lot of heart and soul and blood, sweat and tears into getting the Deltic as perfect as we can. And we'll do the same with the Class 37, and we'll do the same with the Class 92, the Mark 5s, the Manor, and anything we can do. It's, really, really trying to make the most definitive model we can. In 20 years' time, mold and technology might improve again, where we can go even further with it. It might be an evolutionary process. When we're going to look at the current generation of models, some of them have been around for 20 years now, and maybe we're looking at a new generation of each model coming out again, just to take that molding technology onto the next level again. You can see it with some models, although some of them stand incredibly well for their age. So I think it depends on a case-by-case basis. But we just want to make the very best model we can right now with the technology we have.
I mean, one of the things that really did impress me was in the announcement for the forthcoming Coil hood wagons, you're actually modelling the interior, even though these wagons, when they're running in a train, they've got a hood over the top, so you wouldn't even see the interior. And I just thought that attention to detail, what's the motivation to actually even mould the inside underneath the hood?
Well, with the JSAs, it's, I suppose, if someone is modelling a steelworks, you can pose them open and loading and stuff like that, and siding. And it's just, sometimes it comes into it, and maybe we lose the run ourselves. One of the guys is working on a project, and he goes, that'd be lovely if we could do this. And if we can do it, we will do it. Maybe we take it to silly extremes like that, but I think when you then sell it and people see, well, with the JSAs, we're selling packs of 2 for less than £60. So for just under £30, I can get a bogied wagon with all this detail, and then all the interior is done as well. They've gone to, and I think it just shows how much we care about making the very best models we can. And it's just, again, people like cameos. Other people might think that's just the silliest thing ever, but it's just how we like to do it, and we just like to give people the most bang for buck. On one of our Irish models, it's a small hopper wagon, and we modelled a ballast load on it. And underneath it, there's a divider and there's a stanchion that was a hard part to mould, and it's actually really hard to get the load out. It was our first ever model, and no one can actually see this stanchion and stuff like that. That it's actually really hard to put together. But on every single one we sold, it's there, and 4 or 5 people have probably seen it. But it's just, it's nice to do it if we can do it, and we do take the time to just give them that extra set of details. And there's some manufacturers around who are starting to do that right now. And again, it's just trying to push standards forward, trying to push the hobby forward. And I think that, it's not just that we care about obviously we care about our business and what we want to do, but we just want to do stuff for the hobby as well and push that forward as much as we can, because it's a fantastic hobby. And, if stuff like that can really kind of push standards among all manufacturers, then I think the hobby as a benefit, or the hobby as a whole benefits, and it might bring more people into the hobby. And it's just trying to think on that bigger picture side as well as another part of it.
You mentioned a few times in there about the Irish railway model brand that you've got in parallel to Accurascale. How popular is an Irish railway modelling scene? Because I know going back a way, I can remember when there was pretty much nothing on the market for the Irish railway modeller. How has that scene developed? And are you seeing a great interest in modelling Irish railways?
Yeah, it's an interesting one in the sense that myself and my colleagues were all around the same age. The three of us that are based here in Ireland, and we all kind of had a similar upbringing and stuff like that. And we got interested in railways in a young age, and all our train sets were British outline because there was no real Irish models at the time. And that's why we were so interested. Obviously now with Accurascale and all the British outline, that's what we grew up with. But we always thought it would be very nice to have Irish models. And I actually, Lima brought out, or were commissioned to do a Class 33 in Irish livery because it looked like the Metrovic locomotives, and Mark 1 coaches and we had Mark 2 and Mark 3 coaches here, so we tended to get coaches but nothing really to hold them. And then a chap called Paddy Murphy, Murphy Models, he took the plunge around the late 90s, around 99, 2000, and he commissioned a 201 class locomotive from Lima, and it sold tremendously well. So he really, put on his brave coat, and not all heroes wear a cape, but Paddy definitely wore a cape and took the plunge. And he really kind of started the hobby there in Indigenous Irish prototypes. And he done a range of locomotives and is still doing, actually. He just released his last one there late last year. And he also done some coach variations as well. And they sold really, they sold quite well. And, that he was able to kind of build a business on it as well. And the reason why we started was we ran a forum, irishrailwaymodeler.com, and it was just based for all Irish model railway enthusiasts in Ireland, whether you're into Irish railways or continental, British, American, whatever, to come together, because obviously Ireland's quite a small country with the same population basically as Birmingham. So it was good to kind of club together, and it's obviously a very small community. But what we found was there was no Indigenous Irish outline ready to run wagons, and that's how we started, and we made our first wagon, and it's just basically gotten out of control since then. But it's what we've seen is, and actually we talked to Paddy the odd time at shows, he feels that between what we've done and what he's done, the market's actually grown, and it has really grown in recent years, and there's more interest coming from abroad as well as here in Ireland, and more people are getting into it now because they have an interest in Irish outline railways, and Irish railways have their own charm as well. I mean, especially if you go back to it's basically mostly diesel era that's modelled here at the moment, between ready to run support, and it was almost in the 70s and 80s. The Irish railways were basically like a steam railway in the UK, but with diesels. It was that kind of semaphore signalling, staff catchers and all that kind of, really kind of nice branch line trains that, and a lot of British people came here to Ireland to follow those railways around because they were very interesting, and I just had that kind of throwback feel. So it's grown really. It's grown definitely as a market. It's still a very small market, and we wanted to make British model trains, but we knew to sustain a full-time business we needed to do both Accurascale and Irish railway models. Irish railway models will never be strong enough to sustain us because it's still a very niche interest. But it has definitely grown, and we can't wait now to bring out our A-class, the Metrovics, and they're due in May, and that's our first ready-to-run locomotive of all. We have more kind of rolling stock items in the pipeline. We brought out a number of wagons last year. It's really built up as well. So yeah, it's been fantastic, and we've definitely seen more people come into the hobby. Show attendances here in Ireland are up. It's a weird thing as well is that we find that's actually a younger audience. It tends to be our biggest age demographic when we look at our stats. Customer-wise, tends to be between 30 and 45, which will be younger than the UK. So it's good for the future as well that there's obviously more young people coming into it. A lot of people say, model railways are dying and stuff like that. I don't think that's necessarily true, but in Ireland, it's very heartening to see that many young people are interested as well, and long may that continue.
And if people want to find more about Irish products and also about Irish railways, are they available in the UK through UK stockists, or is there somewhere that you'd recommend for people to go to find the products?
Yeah, with our Irish Railway Models range, we actually sell direct. And if you go to irishrailwaymodels.co.uk, we have our full current stock list outlined there, including pre-orders for the Metrovix. If you're interested in learning more about Irish Railways, whether it's prototype or model, check out the irishrailwaymodel.com. That's our forum. And, register and feel free to ask questions and get involved in the hobby in that way. There's also some fantastic Facebook groups if you're on Facebook. For prototype and modelling, there's Railway Modellers Ireland, there's Irish Railways Past and Present, Irish Trains Past and Present. Railway Heritage Ireland is another good one. So there's some really, really good one. If you're on Facebook, to look at it that way. On our web, there's an Irish Model Railway section, which is obviously quite popular as well. So, but yeah, I definitely recommend checking out irishrailwaymodel.com. And then if you're based in the UK and you're interested in checking out our range, because we actually sell Murphy Models logos as well, irishrailwaymodels.co.uk if you're in the UK, and if you're the rest of the world, irishrailwaymodels.com.
So when it comes to Brexit, have you had any issues with that? Obviously, because you're based in Ireland, have there been any problems with the teething troubles that we've been having with trade, or has that not really affected you?
It's funny, we put a lot of time into being as Brexit-proof, if you can even call that as a term, before the 1st of January, 31st of December, 1st of January. And I think what's come up has basically what's affected a lot of businesses or people. It's stuff that you wouldn't have necessarily thought about, so for the most part, we're fine. Accurascale is a UK registered business. So it's, stuff comes in from China into the UK. There's no problems at all. There's no problems with VAT and stuff like that. There was a backlog in dispatch due to the pressure courier companies and Royal Mail were under post January 1st. A lot of them were clogged up with export orders and they weren't collecting anything. And this happened with DPD and Royal Mail and a couple of others. And it was documented on the news and we kind of got caught up in that. So dispatching orders wasn't quite as quick as we usually like to have it. It did take a week or two in a couple of places, but that seems to be settling down now, which is good. Our big kind of issue that we've had overall is importing with the JSAs from China into the UK. They've kind of been bobbling around on the seas for a lot longer than we hoped due to customs backlogs at the port in Felixstowe and stuff like that. But we finally freed them, so it's added about 4 or 5 weeks to the wait, which there was nothing we could do about it, and it was unfortunate. And we had told customers they're nearly here, and then you get hit by something like that.
And presumably that's something all the manufacturers have had.
Yes, it affects everybody. It's just a bit of a backlog due to the new customs procedures and stuff like that. It's nobody's fault. It's just that this new system has come into place. And people are still trying to get to grips with it. Maybe, it just happened all of a sudden between a deal being agreed basically Christmas Eve, and then it happened a week later. It was a lot for customs officials to have to get ready straight away. So there's a lot of new procedures, a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. So we've just felt a bit of an effect with that. But we know now when the next wagon come in, which would be the KUA, the big nuclear flask carrier, we know that will take maybe a little bit longer, but it'll settle down a bit more by then as well. So that should kind of, be okay when they come in March. So that's the only kind of other area where we have, but it's an indirect thing. It's you're kind of like a third party to that issue. It's just that you get caught up in it. But as a kind of day-to-day running a business thing, not really. We were absolutely fine and we were prepared for it. We launched irishrailwaymodels.co.uk for the British market to cut down on the whole VAT implications because we sell so much into the UK and Northern Ireland is involved in this, even though they're kind of in the EU and kind of in the UK. When it comes to tax situation, we have to collect VAT because we sell over a certain threshold into the UK. So, we had to set up the website irishrailmodels.co.uk and register that so we can collect the VAT to give them to Her Majesty's Customs. But that was, again, we had an idea that would come about, so we were well prepared to get that done as well, and all that's up and running as well. But overall, the world's still turning. People are still into model trains. Mm-hmm. We're still able to, sell them off the shelves. We're motoring along still.
Excellent. And one final question. Going back to with the Manor having been announced after you've already done 18 months of work behind the scenes, is that going to be the new norm then for going forward for new models? So we're going to see them when they're much more developed, when we've got an EP to see. And does that mean that you've got a whole load of models that are currently partway through that development process that are not yet announced? Is there a kind of a treadmill of new products still on the go?
Yes and yes.
I'm not going to ask you about any details, but I know there's really, there's no point in me asking because the answer is going to be no. We'll announce when we're ready to announce. But I presume that there's a steady series of models that are in that process, so we're going to get a lot of new releases announced as they're getting to that EP point.
Yeah, to be honest, you describing it as a treadmill is the best way to describe it. Like a conveyor belt, basically. It's people will say, well, you haven't released a Deltic yet, you haven't released a 37 and 92, and now you're releasing a Manor as well. Get them done first. They're in processes now where they're either going to be manufactured or we're feeding back. But in the meantime, we're always researching new products. And then the Manor was one of those. The Manor began after the Deltic and the 37 and the 92. It's just we've kind of, learned how to research and develop and, the technical aspects of a locomotive a lot better when we started. So we can, streamline a lot of the process. And, again, it's a learning curve for us. So we do have other models that are in process in the moment, both powered and unpowered, so rolling stock and locomotives. And we do have a conveyor belt of that. So as the other ones come through to production, we need stuff following up behind it for next year or later this year as those new models come out. So it's what next. And we definitely have that underway. Again, we will be announcing only when we have a fully fledged sample, so people can see, well, these guys have spent their money on it. It's, the tooling is done, because that's a huge expense, obviously, in part of the development. And again, it's like, well, once COVID settles down and all that kind of process kind of, dies away, you'll see a sample and say, well, this is going to be here in, 9 to 12 months. And less waiting time and stuff like that as well. So there's not, announcing something and not seeing it for 3 or 4 years for whatever reason. The Deltic has been too long of a wait, as has the 92, and we've learned from that. That's why that won't happen again. But we're getting their results in those locomotives, as people are seeing, and then the new locomotives we'll see from us will be a lot shorter waiting time. So lots of exciting stuff to come up, and it's steam, it's more modern methods of propulsion. I won't say diesel or electric, but there's that in there as well. I think it was interesting when we announced the Manor. We obviously done a video with Horn magazine. Some of the comments were fantastic, but one of them just stuck in my mind. Was they're just full of ex-Bachmann and Hornby employees. They'll just do steam now and never do a diesel locomotive again. They're finished. We want to serve all parts of the market. We have interest in diesel. We have interest in modern current operations. We have modernisation, sectorisation, and we have interest in the steam as well. And we want to serve all parts of the market. We want to bring Accurascale to people who are interested in the big 4 regions, maybe even before that as well. We might look at that as well. BR steam transition period, sectorisation, current operations. We want to make something for everybody. So we've spoiled kind of what I hate the term modern image, but obviously that's kind of where a bracket we fall in between Deltics, 37s, 92s, Mark 5s, and a lot of our wagons. Some of them are applicable for steam, diesel transition. The others have been sectorisation or more modern stuff. But we want to serve people who, we've spoiled that end of the market with really good stuff over the last 3 years, and we've a lot more coming for that market as well. But we do have interest elsewhere as well, and we will continue to expand our range that way for other people in other interests too.
Well, look, Fran, thank you ever so much for taking some time out to have a chat with us about the Manor, about all the other new models, about Irish railway models as well. It's been great talking to you. So thank you for your time. And I'm going to just say to everybody, thank you guys for watching this. If you like this, don't forget to tickle that like button and consider sharing us on social media too. And if you haven't already done so, do consider hitting the subscribe button and ringing that bell, and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying take good care of yourself. Happy modeling. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky 107107, George Botterini, Andy Finch, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grantline Products, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, and NYMR-ish. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.